one of the things about this that is all the more jaw-dropping is you sat talking with 2 or 3 of your friends about what you had discovered, and then one of them, who happened to have been an ex-boyfriend, realised that the same thing had happened to him as well.
Hi everyone and welcome back to another React. So today we're going to be talking about one of the most disturbing and heartbreaking DNA test discoveries ever shared publicly. A story of Victoria Hill, whose life was changed forever after simple curiosity about her medical history led her to uncover a decade-long secret. A secret involving her own biological father, who wasn't the man who raised her, but her mother's own fertility doctor. And even worse, the man she once dated, someone she had been intimate with, turned out to be her half-brother. This is a story about identity, consent, betrayal, and a far-reaching consequence of fertility fraud. Before we dive in, please like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell to stay updated on all current and future videos.
Though our next guest's life was changed forever when she took an at-home DNA test.
Victoria Hill discovered that her biological father wasn't the man who raised her, but her mother's fertility doctor.
And there was one more devastating twist when she found out that her ex-boyfriend was actually her half-brother.
As she shares this shocking story, Victoria is joining us live from her home in Connecticut. Good morning to you, Victoria. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Good morning. I wanted to start off by saying, first of all, you were looking into your DNA background, not because you suspected something, but because you had medical conditions.
Yeah, there just had been some health things going on that I just was looking for some clarity on. You know, I was a little curious about, heritage, and I had heard about the commercial DNA testing being able to provide a whole host of information. And so I thought it would be helpful and maybe clue me into some health clues in approaching my doctors with what I had going on. Never in a million years did I think I would find out all that I had.
So you never suspected this at all. So what happened the day when you got all the information back?
Yeah, so it was a few days. I got the information and I very quickly just went to go look at the health stuff, and I had seen some half-siblings pop up, but I very quickly just dismissed it and thought it was an error, just, maybe it was some first or second cousins and it wasn't accurate, and so I kind of pushed it aside. But then I kept getting an email from a woman who I later found out was my half-sister saying, there's some information here. Let us know if you need or want to know more. And I, kind of thought it was like a 23andMe kind of gimmick, trying to get me to purchase the next plan up. But as she continued to push,
My first initial reaction here is how brave of her to come on TV and share her story. Bless her heart, having a DNA test, one, to just find out some medical information that she wants to investigate, to then find out this information is absolutely life-changing for her. It's heartbreaking, having the family that you thought you had to then finding out that you are not genetically connected to those people. It's obviously going to be life-changing for her, and now she's finding out that she's got siblings all over the world. She's then going to have to go and find out that she's not genetically related to her dad that's then brought her up, how's that going to impact that relationship? How's her dad going to feel about that? It's really interesting how this story is now going to unfold.
She said, did your mother go to Yale Fertility Treatment Clinic to get help for fertility? And so when she had said that, it got my attention because I did know that much. I knew that my parents had struggled with fertility and went out to Yale to get help. And so she had my attention, and then she gave me the rest of the information, was that this doctor, my mother's fertility doctor, was in fact my biological father.
See, it's an extraordinary thing to hear that, Victoria, from us sitting here. Mm. How did it feel for you to suddenly get that information? It
was pretty surreal. It definitely took a little while to set in. I have to say that growing up, there was a part of me that felt a little different or distant. I mean, we used to have a joke that between my father and I that the only thing that was similar was our hands. So it was, in some weird ways, it kind of clicked, but then, you know, it just seemed so bizarre, you know, in the different stages of it. Not only is it not the man who raised me, biological father, but my mother's doctor that she went to for over 8 years of treatment trying to conceive. And then kind of bringing her the news and sharing that with her. I mean, she was not aware of this as well. So it was something that we kind of sat through together a bit.
The idea, I mean, it's extraordinary, the idea that the doctor that was treating your mum for fertility used his own specimen to inseminate her, and also clearly what has become more and more apparent, lots and lots of other women too.
So it turned out that Victoria isn't alone. In fact, she is one of at least 25 half-known siblings fathered by this one doctor. And that number may continue to grow as more people take this DNA test. And here's the part that shocks most people. There are at least 80 known doctors who have done similar things in the past, using their own sperm without patient consent, violating not only ethics but the rights over their own body of the women they were supposed to help. For decades, this remained hidden because fertility doctors were unregulated, undocumented, and reliant on trust. Victoria's story is one of many that only came to light because of modern DNA tests finally gave people the ability to uncover the truth.
I mean, we know now over 80 doctors that have done this. So
it was quite a common practice. Were there no regulations about it, Victoria?
No, and there really still are not. And that's why we're fighting so more. And that's why I'm bringing this story out, is to raise the awareness so that we can get some better laws and protections and regulations out there.
Your mum's doctor is called Dr. Caldwell. Have you ever spoken to him? I know he passed away quite recently, but did you ever speak to him? Did you ever find him? Did you ever go to his house?
Yes, absolutely. So a couple, I would say, days to a week after, I spent a lot of time trying to find information on him, and I figured out that he lived about 45 minutes from me. So I got in my car one day and I drove to his house. And I didn't really have much of a plan, but as I got there, I just felt like my body was going through the motions of just, you know, pull up the driveway, go to the door, knock on the door, and I did. And so his wife let me in, which was very kind. I can only imagine what was going through her mind. And I talked to him, and that's where he very readily admitted that, yes, this is something he did. And he, you know, did it for over probably 20 years. When you asked him how many times, he just kind of shook his head. He had no idea. And when you asked him why, he was in the business of making babies. And there wasn't a lot of remorse. There wasn't a lot of concern. It was just this very matter of fact.
Through conversations with her new DNA matches, Victoria pieced together a horrifying truth. Her biological father wasn't her dad. It was her mother's fertility doctor, a man who her mother trusted, a man who was supposed to help her family, a man who violated every ethical and moral boundary imaginable. It wasn't just her mother who he did it to. It quickly became clear that he had done this to many women for more than 20 years. This led Victoria eventually confronting him. And he openly admitted it. No denial, no apology strong enough to cover what he had done.
Way of answering.
So he had no sense of professional compromise or moral compromise over what he had done at all?
No, I mean, the impression that I got was just, your mother wanted a baby, she got a baby. Wow. It was just that this was, I believe he might, he was a big part of founding the Yale Fertility Clinic, and so this was his life, and I can only imagine, obviously, you know, the extreme measures that he went through to make this program work, which it creates this like cognitive dissonance, because on one hand, you know, everybody asks, like, aren't you happy to be alive? And your mother wanted a child and she got a child. But on the other hand, I didn't want to be a product of fertility fraud. My mother didn't consent to his sperm, and I didn't consent to having, you know, a growing number of siblings that will continue to grow, especially if he really did donate for over 20 years.
So you just mentioned then half siblings. How many do you know you have right now? And I think you're in very close proximity to each other. I think 4 you went to high school with.
Yeah, it's at 25 right now that we know of, and just every few months the number just continues to grow. I went to elementary school with a half sibling, that we just recently learned about, and there was 4 siblings in the same high school, and I mean this was within a maybe 50-minute radius, and a lot of us are in New England still.
Goodness me. And of course, one of the things about this that is all the more jaw-dropping is you sat talking with 2 or 3 of your friends about what you had discovered, and then one of them, who happened to have been an ex-boyfriend, realised that the same thing had happened to him as well.
Yeah.
But this story gets worse. As Victoria covered the dots between her half-siblings, she realised something devastating. One of her ex-boyfriends, somebody she'd been romantically and intimately involved with, was actually her half-brother. Not knowing their biological connection, they had dated like any normal couple. She described the moment she had realised it as something no one could ever have experienced. Not by her own actions, but by the actions of a doctor who played God with other people's lives.
Yeah, it felt, we figured it out. There's a high school reunion, and I started sharing the information with some close friends, and fast forward to a dinner where some of us continued to get together. And it was at that time that, as I'm telling this story, my high school boyfriend and now friend kind of started to look like he was turning something over in his head, because his mother had recently also told him that. The reason why him and his brother, also a really good friend of mine, his mother went out for fertility treatment with his father. And so Yale was kind of it at the time. So we just kind of assumed that she must have gone to the same place. And, he ultimately called his mother, and his mother confirmed that the same doctor had done her procedure. And so then it was a waiting game, and we all just kind of sat there in disbelief that this was something we were even entertaining, and we made jokes, but it just felt very surreal. And sure enough, within a couple of weeks, he sent me the screenshot that said, "You are my sister." And, the mind-boggling thing about it was just, as he sent me this screenshot, it also, you have the notification on your phone from 23andMe, you have a new half-sibling. And so just that realization, it felt like I was on the Truman Show. It's just one next thing that hits after another, and we still don't know what's to come.
No, it must have been terrifying, just even that thought of, he's your half-brother who was your boyfriend, but then you also look to the future, and all of a sudden, of course, there are other children involved that are now first cousins, but you don't necessarily know who they all are or where they all are. How are you looking at the future now, Victoria?
Now that Victoria has children of her own, she's focused on something many of us would never even think about. Because with so many half-siblings, cousin and extended genetic connections scattered all across the region, there is a real risk that one day her children could unknowingly form a romantic relationship with someone biologically related to them. That's a long-term impact of fertility fraud. And it doesn't just affect one generation, it could affect many.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I'm doing this, because I want my daughter, who's 8 years old, she's very much aware, at her level as to what's going on, but I want her to be aware. I want her to know that she's going to have a lot of cousins, and we're going to have a lot of family members that, we could choose what we do with those relationships, whether or not we want to get close, but then also in dating and romantic relationships, it's going to be important for her and my son to also be aware, and all of us, all of the half-siblings that I have and our children. I think there's about 50 first cousins that we know of in the New England area right now.
So, as Kat said earlier, Victoria, Dr. Caldwell passed away a few weeks ago. Has he ever faced any legal proceedings? Is Yale Fertility going to face any legal proceedings? Because, of course, there's so many of you that have been affected, and you're trying to get the rules changed, aren't you?
Right, yeah. I mean, there are some cases right now, but they're really not going anywhere because they can't. There's an issue of statute of limitations, current or non-existent, fertility fraud laws, which is why we're pushing so hard. There's 2 active suits right now, but again, I think it's kind of more of just trying to show that this wasn't okay, and allowing the victims to have a voice. But I unfortunately am not too optimistic about where the cases will actually go until there's better laws and protections in place.
We did reach out to Yale Fertility, but we haven't heard back from them. It's an extraordinary story, Victoria. You're very brave sharing it as well, but the importance of it is clear. So thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much for taking time to hear this and help me raise awareness.
Thank you, Victoria.
Just a remarkable.
Victoria's story is tragic, but it's also eye-opening. It exposes how vulnerable families were, and in some cases still are, in the world of reproductive medicine. Consents matter, transparency matters, identity matters, which is something we take pride in here at MSJ. And emotional, psychological, and generational fallout from violations like this can last a lifetime. If there's anything her story teaches us, it's that fertility treatment requires stronger safeguarding, better regulations and accountability that goes far beyond what currently exists. Because no one should ever discover that their father was their mother's doctor and that their ex-partner was actually their sibling. We would like to know your thoughts. If you're interested in more stories like this or would like to learn more about reproductive ethics, DNA testing and fertility scandals, let us know in the comments below. But if you do, please keep your comments respectful as we encourage healthy discussions. As always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and ring that notification bell to stay updated on all current and future videos. Be sure to take care of yourselves and your families, and we'll see you next time.